So I decided to tell you all a story that my mother used to tell me growing up when we would take these long trips to visit relatives in the South. They are not the typical story that we tell children these days, which is probably why I ended up so fucked up in the head. Okay, so you have been warned. You have been warned. Without any further ado, here is my mother's story called The Haunted House. There was once a brother and sister whose parents made them walk to and from school together. The older brother hated his little sister. She was so annoying and always getting in the way. Now, the little sister loved her brother very much. To her, he was the coolest person in the whole world. And she just wanted him to like her and to think that she was cool too. Every day, their walk home from school, they passed an old, abandoned house. The paint was peeling off of it. The doors and windows were all missing. So anyone could go inside of it, except for the rumor that this house was haunted. Every kid in town swore that they knew someone who had gone inside the house but had never been seen again. The brother loved to tease his sister about the house. He told her gruesome stories about missing people being dismembered, torn into bloody pieces by the spirit of an ancient, evil madman. The stories terrified the little sister, but she did her best to laugh it off, all because she didn't want her brother to know that she was afraid. But he knew. She knew that he knew, and the knowledge pierced her every day as they passed the haunted house. One day, the older brother was in a particularly bad mood. The boys at school were much bigger than him, had beaten him up. Now he had a swollen eye and a split lip. His anger grew and grew as he tasted the wound in his mouth. He wanted to make someone else hurt just as bad as he was hurt. He looked over at his sister, and he hated the way she appeared to be skipping as she took long strides with her overly long legs just to keep up with him. He hated the way her cute little piggy tails bounced up and down with their ribbons. But most of all, he hated that look of concern on her big, dumb, stupid face. Please tell me what happened, said the little sister. Those dumb jerks will be sorry when I tell Mom and Dad. The older brother stopped dead in his tracks. Do not tell Mom and Dad, he growled. If somebody told, the bigger boys would just make things worse. How could his stupid sister not know that? He turned to look at her. He realized that the haunted house loomed just behind them. It gave him an idea. A terrible idea. A cruel smile spread across his face as his dumb sister blinked innocently at him. But, she started to say, Whoa! Did you see that? Pointing over her shoulder. What? The brother took a step past her, pointing at the house. I saw something moving by the door. Fear filled the sister's eyes. She clenched her hands at her sides. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. Nuh-uh. You're just trying to scare me. You don't believe me? The brother laughed. Why don't you just check it out yourself then? The sister shivered with terror at the suggestion. She bit down hard on her lip to keep a whimper from escaping her mouth. "Are you chicken?" The sister recoiled at that. It wasn't cool for her brother to think that she was chicken. He began flapping his arms, his body moving to a slight squat. He crowed sadistically. "Stop!" squeaked his sister. But the boy kept going louder than before. His eyes narrowed into a merciless glare. "Stop it," she said, putting a little more strength into her voice. His upper lip curled harshly as he bent his arms harder and kicking up his feet. The sister thumped her backpack on the ground as hard as she could. "Fine!" she shouted. Her arms swung wide at her sides as she stomped up and down the lawn and onto the front porch of the haunted house. "How's this?" The brother shook his head. "Nope. Go step through the door." Her eyes widened. The corner of her mouth twitched just a little. She couldn't understand why her brother was being so mean to her. The brother began to raise his arms again in another flap. But his sister turned on her heel before he could finish and stomped her way up the door frame. She stood right there on the threshold, throwing her hands open wide to indicate her position. She raised her eyebrows in question. "That's pretty good," her brother conceded. "But what if he went all the way inside and stood in the window?" Tears filled his sister's eyes. She bit her lip again. Please, I just want to go home." But her brother was immovable. He folded his arms across his chest, his cruel smile growing wider. He decided that he wanted to see his little sister literally pee her pants. That would be so awesome. Maybe then she would finally leave him alone. "Do it," he insisted. "If you do it, I'll take a picture and then we can show everyone in school that you were brave enough to go inside the haunted house." "Then can we go home?" his sister whined. "Then we can go home." She let out a great sigh. "Fine." The sister did not stomp this time. She turned her head all around, checking to make sure she was in fact all alone in the house. She took one step inside. The floor creaked eerily under her slight weight. The empty window frame was only about 5 feet away. She could make it. She knew she could. Another slow step, and the floorboards groaned. The wood beneath her feet didn't feel very solid. It was so old and rotted that she wasn't sure if it could hold her. 2 more steps. Each sounded louder than the last. If there was anyone or anything here, it surely knew she was here now. Oh, why had she been so loud stomping up the porch stairs? Tears began to spill from her eyes. Just a couple of steps, and she would be in front of the window. Then she would see her brother, and then it would be safe, right? She could feel the snot heavy within her nostrils. She snorted it back up, and it would just make more noise. It would be a noise that would confirm to anyone here that she was a person and not just a wild animal or stray cat. Bumbling about the house. Maybe it was better just to let the snot run out over her upper lip. The next step, snapped loudly. A piece of wood splintered up towards her as she stumbled forward the last few steps. She was breathing heavily as she straightened up in front of the window. Her blurred eyes searched frantically around her one more time before landing on the figure of her brother on the front lawn. He was hunched over and laughing maliciously at her misfortune. He looked up at her with that terrible but pleased smile. Her brother was enjoying this far more than he had imagined. "That's really good," he said. "You made it. I'm proud of you." "Just take the picture," his sister sobbed. "Take it?" He nodded. Traces of his insidious laughter still leaking out of him. The brother took his time digging through his own backpack to prolong his sick pleasure. "Please hurry," begged his sister. I just want to go home." She was blubbering now. Her brother was supposed that this was just as good as her peeing her pants. "Okay," he said. He lifted his cell phone up into the air. He made devil fingers with one hand and waggled his tongue at his sister. She shakily lifted her hand to make the devil fingers back at him. And then he looked down to the screen and took the picture. "Wait a minute," he thought as he pressed the button. Something didn't look right on the screen. He quickly flipped back to the most recent photo he had taken with his phone. Then it sunk in. His sister's head had begun to turn to the side, her eyes looking away from the camera, as though she had spotted something that startled her. Jerking his head up, he dropped the phone to his side. The window was empty. His sister was gone. "Ah, very funny," he called out. The brother waited for a response, but there wasn't any. "That's great, sis. I didn't even hear the floor creak when you ran and hit." That didn't make any sense either. The wood floor had clearly creaked, and not just when she stomped up to the porch, but when she slowly approached the window. "Okay, you can come out. We can go home now." But his sister didn't answer. He approached the house, stopping just at the bottom of the porch. His sister had gone farther than this without any hesitation, so why couldn't he? "It's not funny anymore," the brother called. "Come on, let's get out of here." He waited a minute more, biting his lips so hard that blood began to trickle out again. He had to go after her. What if she was hurt? He had wanted to embarrass her, but he did not want her to be physically hurt. The brother forced himself to take that first step. He creaked loudly, just as expected. "Are you okay in there, sis?" He paused at the doorway and took a deep breath. "Sis?" The brother slowly bent his head into the door, turning into the direction of the window that his little sister had gone to. His eyes grew wide. What he saw there shocked him beyond anything he had ever seen. To be continued.